The House. So in today's debate, the motion says that it will be better, and that is what we have to prove from our side of the House, for international organizations like the UN, like the ICC, like the AU, to be the ones who determine whether or not a particular organization has met the objective metrics for being declared a terrorist organization. Now, in today's debate, something is implicit in the motion, which is, of course, that these countries are a part of this organizations ab initio. The motion does not imply that we should prove that these organizations should be ones that should just be joined afresh by these nations. 5 points of positive matter we're going to be bringing to you in today's debate from opening government. Firstly, on what the nature of human rights is within the context of the state. Secondly, on what the effect of such an appellation or a tag is going to be. Thirdly, on why we get more objective evaluation of human rights violations on the scale of an international organization. Fourthly, on why state sovereignty is not something that we should prioritize in this particular case. And lastly, on why discourse is best gotten at the international level. And ultimately, why everything we prove to you in today's debate goes towards promoting human rights and lessening violations. So firstly, on the nature of human rights, we say human rights are things that were created in recognition of the fact that in the context of the state, the primary responsibility of that state is to protect this right and to make sure that the citizens of those states and the state itself continue to be viable by virtue of the fact that their rights are not infringed upon without due recourse to the law, the rule of law in that particular state. So we say that another reason why rights were created is even protection from the state. So we recognize that in a lot of states and a lot of democracies, whether or not they are proper democracies or dysfunctional democracies, there are a lot of attempts by the government to overreach, overstep, and actually violate the rights of people within the context of those states. So we say that the reason why an individual in Nigeria has the right to the freedom of expression and freedom of movement and all those other things is so that, if necessary, they can take actions that do not necessarily go in line with the exact wishes of the particular government of that state. So we do not believe that the state is, in and of itself, a government that was elected for a temporary period of time, which is very important, to be solely and ultimately the determiner of what exactly a terrorist organization is, to the extent that that right that they seek to violate when they have attached and tagged such a terrorist organization is something that they did not create. It's something that's actually created to actually make sure that the people of those states are protected from them. What's your point?
The motion is about extremist groups, not terrorist groups.
See, the point in today's debate is that extremist in and of itself is a subjective evaluation. You, as an individual, do not have the entire right to determine what exactly an extremist group is. Malcolm X was tagged as an extremist group by the American government in the past. Black Lives Matter has been tagged by certain politicians in America as a terrorist organization, an extremist organization. That is the entire point of the debate, that temporary governments who have rights, who are supposed to enforce and protect rights that was created to protect people from them, should not have the ultimate ability to determine exactly when an individual has become an extremist or a terrorist. Knowing fully well that sometimes the appellation of extremist is not given, as in the case of the Jehovah's Witness, when a person has killed people or burnt things, is created solely when the ideology of that particular group goes contrary to the wishes of the person who is in power in that state. That's the important thing. I don't get what your point is with extremists and terrorists. Now, secondly, on the issue of the effect of this appellation, we say the moment a particular group is tagged as being an extremist or terrorist organization, whatever it is you want to call it, what happens is that their rights become automatically derogated from that particular society, so they are subject to more violations of their rights, whether by virtue of imprisonment, by virtue of restrictions on their freedom of speech and expression, or any other restriction on their rights. So we believe that to the extent that this results in a violation of the rights of the people within that state, it is something on two levels, I'm going to show you now, which is better done at the international level. So firstly, we must understand that violation of rights, faithfulness, I'm not going to take it again, just keep quiet. We must understand that violation of rights are things that do not affect the people solely within the context and the geographical state of a particular state. It affects countries and states who are actually outside those places. So on the first level, we see that when you have crisis situations like in Syria or in Iraq or in Nigeria, as a matter of fact, we have a situation whereby this crisis naturally spill over to other countries, naturally affect citizens of other countries who had no ability to determine whether or not this particular organization should be determined as a terrorist organization or an extremist organization, knowing fully well that this appellation, this tag, determines how the government treats them. So now you have a situation whereby, by virtue of exclusion, the terrorist or whatever appellation as a terrorist organization, you have the Jehovah's Witness, maybe tomorrow become violent, become much more aggressive than they are today. What results is a crisis that does not end within the context of that particular state. On a second level, because we say that terrorist and extremist designations are not things that are limited to the control and to the implementation of the particular state that determines them, we say that other states should have a right to actually affect this determination. So this is very important. When you have a situation whereby you tag Al-Qaeda or ISIS or the Taliban or even North Korea, another country, as a terrorist group or an extremist group, what happens as a matter of fact is that other countries now bear a burden to actually assist the country that did that tagging in order to make sure that they can mitigate the effect of that particular group. Now, to the extent that other countries, if America tags a group as an extremist organization, it requires other countries to actually assist them in mitigating. So Canada might now implement much more stringent regulations to make sure that you don't have all these outbreaks of violence or that kind of stuff. So the extent that your own actions is going to place a burden on other people, we say as a matter of fact that it requires all those other people to have a say in what you do. Which is why in Nigeria it doesn't belong to any economic organization and do as it likes, and if our economy fails, it fails for itself. But when you have a Greece, which economy actually affects because it is a part of the EU, that economy cannot fail unless, and they cannot take extreme actions if they do not actually interact and actually, get the opinions of other countries which will be affected by whatever happens within the context of their economy. Now, thirdly, onto objective evaluation. We say in a state you have a single person who holds power like Vladimir Putin in Russia. On the contrary, in the UN, you have competing interests, you have relative equality, contrary to what you have between the national government and a political party who is in the opposition. So when you have in the UN, you have different power blocks. You have Russia and China, you have America and Britain. What happens is that all these bodies aggregate to actually compete and actually determine what is an objective evaluation of when a particular group has become extremist or terrorist or whatever other kind of thing. We believe that this is a much better situation, because if you have a situation whereby Buhari or Putin can just arbitrarily determine that a particular group is extremist, what happens as a result of that is that there's less opportunity for discourse, there's less opportunity for an objective evaluation of those rights. We do not believe that in the international sphere there's any issue with tagging groups like ISIS and Al-Qaeda as being extremist organizations, because it is known as a matter of fact that they have violated laws and violated norms of society on the international scale. Now, fourthly, we tell you about why state sovereignty is not something that should be prioritized in this particular sphere. So we believe that on the international community, because we showed you how human rights in one country also affect and are dependent on human rights in another country, we believe that the sovereignty of a particular state is something ab initio, which motion presumes has been ceded to these international organizations. So the reason why you might have somebody from your country commit a crime in your country or be tried by the ICC in The Hague is because you have already ceded this right to the ICC or to the UN and all those other kind of stuff. So we believe that to that extent, we believe that having ceded this right in the first place, it is only a natural extension, and because most of these states in the UN actually prioritize the United Nations Declaration of Human Rights in terms of aggregating what their own human rights regime is, we believe it is very important to understand that actually these international organizations are a better force, are a more objective evaluator of when human rights are being violated, are a more objective evaluator, because at the end of the day, when you tag a group as being extremist, as I showed you in my second point, automatically they are going to be human rights violations. In today's debate, we've shown you what the nature of human rights is and why a lot of times they are created to protect people from the state itself. We've shown you why the effect of this evaluation will be a derogation from their rights. We've shown you why objective evaluation is better gotten at the international level due to an competing interests that are of relative equality. We've shown you why state sovereignty should not be prioritized and why we get better discourse at international level, and why ultimately it promotes the human rights that we seek. We're very, very proud to propose this motion.
Thank the Prime Minister for his speech.